that's just it. It's many years of reviews, hoping, and I needless to say, Kevin, that thank you to the internet. Because early on, it's difficult to chase after dream for all the way in Singapore. We're so far from USA, which I didn't call Mecca. Like a Mecca of superhero comics. And so my thoughts about
it was a long journey, I can imagine. It's all just
Yeah, I first came across your work here in Singapore. Your self-published graphic novel made its way into my hands, and I enjoyed it. And you kept in touch on things. And then you were invited to the Art Atelier, which is a marble training class that we have at Disneyland Paris every year. You became one of the most recent graduates and success stories.
Yeah, thank you for that. I used to joke with my friends that, why am I suddenly in Marvel Art Atelier? I must have more CD download for the years. Because I've had like maybe 3-4 portfolio reviews.
Yeah, and then some samples for me, the Moon Knight stuff. There's a bunch of things you did over the years, but you're like it's not overnight to break into Marvel. It's really like really like when you were on a sports team. If you graduate high school, you don't go right and play for the New York Yankees or for Inter Milan or one of the big teams. Who was a popular team here? Liverpool? I don't know. What's that?
be careful about which song.
Yeah, I know. I don't want to get into sports rabbit, but you got to work your way up through the minor leagues and play for different teams. Finally crossing that line to get hired by Marvel.
Since we're talking about that, maybe for both of you, from your perspectives, what's a good tip to give somebody who wants to work at Marvel? And maybe specifically for Zach's.
Why don't you start? Because you feel it's better.
I mean, aside from the fact that you have to love the craft, love drawing it, just do it for love of it. But be patient, be persistent, and it can be an emotional trip for sure. Yeah, because you have faced many disappointments, and you have to accept that disappointments are part of the journey. Yeah, because when I think back on it now, I was here. And I'm glad I'm worn down because I think it's better happening than time happening. Yeah. And my last advice for those pursuing the Marvel artistry, learn to be happy for others.
Yes. This is going to be a weird piece of advice, and it might not make sense at first, but I'll explain. You should never set out to be a comic book artist. You should set out to be an artist who draws comics. Because if you only look at comics and that's the only thing you want to do, you're not expanding yourself to different horizons. A comic book artist needs to draw everything. He knows how to draw buildings, and facial expressions, and body language, and motion, dynamics. And if you look at just comics, 2D comics sometimes, your art's not going to develop. You should look at doing other things. Go to classes for anatomy, go to classes for architecture, go to life drawing, draw trees. Know how to draw anything. Because as a comic book artist, you're not just drawing superheroes. You have to draw superheroes in real people, in real settings, in real backgrounds. You never know what the script is going to hold, so you should be able to draw everything. And plus, as you're trying to break into comics, if you're an artist who's good at other things, you can get jobs in other places to pay the bills while you're trying to get into comics.
That's great advice. I think, and selfishly in the past, that's kind of similar advice for writers as well. Being able to write, being able to comics as well.
Yes, exactly. And again, wanting to know how to write comics and, loving having a Spider-Man story in your head and wanting to tell that Spider-Man story since you were a kid is something that everybody has. But as a writer, you should break out and expand and write different things. Write sci-fi, write fantasy, write real-world fiction, write romance, write whatever you want. Write novels, write blog posts, write screenplays, write, Instagram posts. Writing is writing. we hired writers from all walks of life just because they entertain us with their words. It's not just about putting the words in the mouth of the characters, it's about telling stories that are going to entertain the most amount of people.
I find that someone that came there who was a very bad manager. I want to ask, what's the process like for, and I know there's going to be a lot of good conflicts, but how's the process like for each issue and how it produces? And let's use, say, Ryan Roth and versus Fantastic Four.
Every comic book is a collaboration. It's really a collaboration between 6 people or 7 people if you count myself. You have the writer, you have the penciler, you have the inker, you have the colorist, you have the letterer, and then you have the editor. And the editor has a really big say in the direction of the characters as well. But first and foremost, the ideas start with the writer and the artist. And they form the ideas that they want to tell and then submit them to the editor. Usually in arcs, something like Fantastic Four is different because they kind of tell it in one-issue stories, but they do have an overarching story. So you usually think about it in 6 to 12 issue storylines, just half a year or a year. And then with the editor, you do fine-tune what's going to happen in each issue. The writer goes away and writes, and then turns in the script, and then the artist starts drawing. And then it's like a production every month from there.
I had to ask that just because I'm a huge fan of Fireworks, so that was purely from you, to be honest. Elvin, jumping over to you. So from an artist's perspective, a creator's standpoint, what was your process like for the president?
You mean the technical aspects of it, like my process?
Yeah. So your process, how was it like working with designs and then how much input did you have in terms of the process?
Oh yeah, it was great when I got the script for it and I read through it. I think I approached the topic like I would any other topic. So except that there was a bit more research done because it's a Predator comic, and I'm lucky that I'm a fan of a lot of things and I'm a Predator fan as well. So I like to for myself at the beginning to spend some time doing a lot of research and the thumbnails. Thumbnails are very important.
Thumbnails are like the layouts where you do quick sketches to show your editor to make sure you're going in the right direction.
This one, sorry. But in particular, and I'm often depending on who scolded or praised that my thumbnails are exceptionally detailed because I need them as
nothing.
They're like my exoskeleton. Once they're down, it's time going on to so they're very detailed, and I depend on that for the entire comic afterwards. Yeah. So that's the focus. Then after that,
You didn't think you worked for Predator? You didn't think you worked for Predator? You had no thinker.
Yes, I have been already review and history. The one thing I have to say about this first Marvel comic, I was so happy to how to say the professional experience with the inker, the editor, the writer, and everyone was great. Yeah.
I was going to ask, even though I asked when you were working is you're so used to working on your own with your graphics. Like, what was it like for you to go from working on something that was not your entire own story to now working with all
It was different, but it wasn't as much of like a switch as I thought. I was comfortable with it, and if anything, right, having an editor and already for me, right, then that I could go faster and just and so it was good. And Ethan is great because he gave me a really clear script. Plus, when it came down to the climatic 6-page fight scenes and
Oh wow, go crazy. Yeah, those are the best 2 words you can see as an artist, right?
And so and every deck is basically Wolverine, so that people do like a Wolverine fight.
do you know the most important 2 words for racing?
Yes, absolutely.
So you talked a little bit about Marvel Studios and you touched on it a little bit. But how, aside from sharing about this, how has the Marvel Cinematic Universe changed the comics since its
I think the Marvel Cinematic Universe hasn't really changed our comics, so to speak. What the Marvel Cinematic Universe has done, and what it's become of that is it's broadened Marvel's viewership and brand and just fans to extents that we never even thought of. When we were all comic book fans as kids, we never dreamed we'd see Loki in a movie, much less an Avengers movie with Captain America holding Thor's hammer saying, "Avengers Assemble." And it's broadened Marvel's reach just because now everybody sees the movies and they get to know the characters and they're curious, so they go and they play the games and they'll buy the action figures and they'll buy the comics. So, the things that Marvel Studios has really done, besides make 34 amazing movies and incredible TV shows, is really bring the exposure to Marvel and our characters and expand our fan bases globally to reaches that we could have never imagined.
On the flip side of that, we touched on this a little bit, but how much do comics feed into the films, yes, but also games, animation, creators, and when you think about this story,
it's we tend not to try to think about as our editorial team and our creative base. We tend not to think about, this is a great idea for a movie, or this is a great idea for a game, or this is a great idea for an animation. It's just tell the best story possible with our characters in the comics that makes sense for where we are now as Marvel Comics. And there's always the hope that anything we create will work its way up. We know that could happen now faster than ever. Miles Morales, Spider-Gwen, Kamala Khan, all created in the last 10 years. All have had TV shows and or movies made about them. And it's been an amazing ride. So it's not just the old stories that are getting made into content outside of comics anymore. It's the new stuff, but we just don't know that's going to happen. And it's not our job to worry about that. It's our job is to make sure that the characters are handled with respect, that the Marvel continuity is handled with respect, that what Stan Lee and Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko and John Byrne and Frank Miller and Jim Lee or whoever have created in the past, we're respecting those legacies and walking in their footsteps and thinking about the future of comics, which will be told maybe in other methods, but we're just thinking about print for the moment.
That's honestly really wonderful to hear. I think we're all comic fans here as well, so I'm very supportive of this. Since we're talking about all these other movies as well, we talk about movies, we talk about games, we talk about animation, and you can see these other characters have their own stories in these adaptations as well, but you could also see these mediums as competition to comics. And I think it's not wrong to say that comics nowadays have more competition before potential. So I wanted to ask, how do the comics capture this attention these days, and how specifically younger readers, next generation
it's we really focus on the fact that we want every Marvel comic to be new reader friendly. I understand how daunting it can be for a new fan to become a fan of Miles Morales or become a fan of something that's happening in the Rivals video game, and they go into a comic shop and they say, "Oh my God, where do I start?" It's 65 years of history, and it can be difficult to figure out where it should be. But every Marvel comic we produce is made that it could be somebody's comic. I started with Hulk or X-Men 120, not X-Men #1, but I understood what was going on. But we try to remember that, and we try to keep our editors and our creators doing that. Any comic could be somebody's first, so just make sure you name the characters. There's a little recap of what's going on that Stan Lee did so brilliant when he was writing things. It's just, don't make the comics impenetrable. Don't look too much into continuity. Make sure that you're telling your story, but your story is accessible.
I love that you said that, because I remember reading interviews that you were everybody everybody's gonna have a first comic. Every comic is somebody's first comic, so make it a little bit intimate.
Exactly.
Jumping back to you, Elvin. We're going to start wrapping things up. I think we have a little bit of time for questions and answers, but let's start wrapping things up. I just wanted to ask you, Elvin, you worked on a further comic published by Mayday. You're put on the spot, but you've not worked on a superhero yet.
Yes.
No pressure, but which characters from the Marvel universe would you like?
Not exactly like
Okay, top three.
okay. I have two answers to that, right? And, I hope it doesn't sound fake, but it is true. I'll be honest. Firstly, I'm pretty hungry for anything now. I love it, and to me, it's a better perspective, right? So I have classic characters which I love, obviously, I'm going to, but for the characters that I'm not so familiar with, I see it as a challenge. That it's a chance for me to get get better, and I like the challenge of like. Yeah, given this character, I'm not familiar with it, and I'm going to win anything though, I'll except it's one thing I don't like to draw, which I'm not going to say because Elvin said it's not a character, it's something. I know you asked me that in Italian, like what's your weakness? I'm going to give you an idea what to say.
Can I just look at you as well? Is it either horses or cars?
You're on the right track. That's one. That's the second part of the question is, I've said before, visual perspective, as an academic student, I'd love to draw a good character. Yeah, I think especially that very reasonable choice. I'm a fan of Kate and Weeks. This stuff too. Shadow, but and Archie. I'm a big fan of Archie. And generally, anything X-Men, I'll be happy to do it. There's magic. Genre based, I'm very well sci-fi or very fantasy, so magic would be feel my magical needs.
Good to know.
I can see CB taking notes from doing this right now.
I hope so, thank you.
So you might get a Archangel stories with horses and powers, just for the challenge. So maybe let's wrap up one question for you before we close the audience. I'm sure you have to keep many developments close to your chest, and we're not asking for breaking news, but if you do want to share with us, what are Marvel Comics plans for 2026?
Like I said, I can't give too many plans away. But looking out in the crowd, I see some Marvel characters have come to join us. And let's just say that next year you're going to be seeing something new from Deadpool. Dr. Doom is going to have a big year. Wolverine has his own ongoing series currently, but he's going to be going through a few changes come next summer. And one of the biggest characters that's going to be affecting the Marvel Universe come next summer and going forward is going to be Captain America here, written by Chip Zdarsky currently, but Chip has some very big Captain America plans, so didn't really set this up, but those four characters are going to be big pillars in the Marvel Universe in 2026.
Thank you, cosplayers. You've given us somewhat of a scoop just by being in the crowd.
Thank you, cosplayers.
We've got a little bit of time. I think we can do one question from the audience. You're all very shy, but
Can you see the light?